Our first walk started in July 21 when we started a long journey from the Syrian-Turkish border through 65 cities and 8 countries, all the way to Manchester in the UK. In her first walk, Amal met over 1 million people. When I was asked to lead this artistically, I felt very, very pleased, but also tormented by the huge responsibility and by creating a project that was groundbreaking, because nobody did a project of that scale with this kind of concept. Because I'm from Palestine and I'm from the same basket of misfortune in many ways like Syrian refugees are, I think that the 3 terms that come to mind when I think about Little Amal is vulnerability, resilience, and curiosity. And in a way, they're all interconnected, right? She is resilient because she's vulnerable because she's curious because she is. And in many ways, she's 10 years old. She's just a child. I think of her as a real 10-year-old that has a lot of experience. Obviously, she is a child of war and she has gone through a lot, but she's still life-loving and curious, and she'll always prefer ice cream over fear. So we are in 2023, and as we speak leisurely now, there are millions of displaced refugee children around the world. The message of don't forget about us is in today's world, in an affluent world, we believe that there is space for them. There is a need to take care of them, and we can't just disregard this. And I think that what the Amal Project wants to do is first to raise awareness so people know that this is happening, and it's not happening as numbers and statistics and headlines in the newspapers. It's happening to real people that are complete, that are complicated, sometimes ugly, sometimes beautiful, sometimes silly, sometimes clever. But they are people just like us, and they shouldn't be held in limbo. But we are all refugees, children of refugees, grandchildren of refugees, and we are also guests. And I think this notion is something that we should constantly remind ourselves about. And one of the most beautiful things about this project for me is that sometimes walking down a street, somebody who's definitely not a newly arrived refugee and has been living in this community for years goes, she is me, because I understand how it feels to be afraid, or I understand how it feels to be alone, or she reminds me of my mother, my grandmother. So people tend to think of her as somebody that belongs to them, and that's already a huge achievement of the project. But one of the great things about the walk is that every walk is a new walk, because every walk is a new encounter with a new city, with a new community in a city, with a new different texture. It's completely fresh every time. Detroit is one of the cities I'm most excited about when it comes to the state. Obviously, Detroit has a very complicated history. And in many ways, today, Detroit is a story of a phoenix rising. And part of the feathers on the wings of that phoenix is the new immigrants, the refugee communities that are helping reshape Detroit. And I think for Amal's heritage, for where she comes from, Detroit and Dearborn and Michigan as a whole has a huge Arab diaspora. But what the city represents was really crucial for the storytelling of a refugee that discovers the United States. So Detroit was never a question in many ways. I think Detroit is an amazing place to be in right now with Amal. I think she represents a lot of people in the city, but I think she also represents the city, right? It is a story. Amal is also a story about survival. It's a story about resilience. It's a story about somebody that keeps walking forward no matter the hardship. And I think that is the city. We are storytellers, so we come with with a humble gift to the table. We want to provoke thought. We want to inspire people to think differently, to act differently. When I think of the walk in 15 years, I think of what is the legacy it leaves in children that meet her today or in adults. How would they think differently? What will inspire them to be welcoming, to be compassionate?
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.